Hi, my name is Rynn, pronounced like rain from the sky. I just started my master's in Community and Regional Planning, which is the MCRP program here at SCARP, which is the School of Community and Regional Planning. Before I came to SCARP, I also attended UBC. I completed a bachelor's in applied science in materials engineering, and I minored in urban studies. My one UBC regret was not getting to go on an exchange in a traditional Go Global term that UBC offers, but I was really excited to hear about this global seminar, which happens for just about 3 or 4 weeks over the summer. And you get to go with your UBC peers and go make the world your classroom, basically. And I was even more excited to hear that this was a two-way exchange course between UBC and the National University of Singapore, NUS for short. Because of course, Singapore is known for their sustainability, for their green architecture, for their public amenities that make their city livable. And so that two-way exchange was extremely valuable and exciting to kind of see the city in a new perspective. We got broken down into smaller groups of both UBC and NUS students, and we got to work on a project together throughout the entire course. My experience of taking a course abroad for the first time was super fun and exciting. It's really rare to have such an immersive course experience where you're not only reading about it, but you're actually there in person. You're experiencing things in 3 dimensions, and you're also getting toured around by people who have worked directly on these projects. And so you have such a unique learning experience to get to interact with them, get to pick their brain about why did they make these decisions, and why is something the way that it is now. It was also really cool getting to bond with fellow UBC peers, particularly students from different faculties that I wouldn't have had a chance to take a class with otherwise. And I know for myself, I was excited to hear what our NUS peers thought about our transit system, and it was a super exciting moment when they got to ride on our SkyTrain for the first time, because we had been riding on their mass rapid transportation system for so long that it was exciting for them to come here and for them to experience what our transit system is like. Some of my richest learning experiences in Singapore were just from having meals with our NUS peers and getting to hear about their experience growing up in Singapore, what our homes looked like, what our houses looked like, and even that was a very unique experience because here in North America, there's a lot of single-family homes, there's a lot of duplexes and townhomes, whereas in Singapore, a lot of them are apartments and towers, social housing. So I come from an engineering background, and so I'm really interested in how people interact with the built environment around us. How do people make meaning of spaces? How do we build with more environmental and more social justice? Those are questions that I think about, and I think this course really helped enlighten some of those topics, because Singapore is a place exemplified in terms of their social amenities, their housing board, how their land is used so intentionally. And so it was a very enlightening experience to get to go to Singapore and learn more about how they manage their resources. We live in Vancouver, which is kind of known as this global city, but what does that actually mean? And so to me, urban studies is the studying of urbanization and how this city came to be, as well as the allocation of resources, of green space, of accessibility, of transportation, all of these infrastructures, whether they're built or social, that have been created, and where do we go from here? How do we improve these? How do we make it more just? How do we make it more sustainable and livable? What are the people's qualities of life? What areas need to be improved, and how can we learn from other places? What does it mean to be a livable city? What does it mean to be a green city? What does it mean to be a city that prioritizes reconciliation? Even in the class that we were in, everybody had a different understanding and a different lived experience of what makes a city livable to them. So how do people make meaning of spaces? How do we build in a way that promotes social and environmental justice? It was super inspiring for me to see how planning is done in a different part of the world, in a different continent, in a different climate, that helped me see things in Vancouver, in my own city, that I didn't get to see before. Singapore, water preservation is a very prevalent topic that every citizen is aware of and is very conscious of. And then when we got to Vancouver and we got to learn about Metro Vancouver's water infrastructure, even though I grew up in the Metro Vancouver area, I always thought that, you know, because it rains so much here, we definitely don't need to preserve water. We are not water scarce, we're totally okay, just look at the weather outside, it's probably raining. But I was surprised to find out that because of climate change, our water resources in Vancouver are changing, and water preservation is becoming more and more of an issue here. So it was interesting to kind of learn about it from a Singapore's perspective and see how proactive they were in engaging citizens on this topic, and then come to Vancouver and also learn about this topic where we're not as engaged as citizens. And so that is definitely where I felt the kind of comparative power, per se. Vancouver is often branded as the greenest city. It's internationally known to be a beautiful city. We're surrounded by water, surrounded by mountains. We have great access to outdoor spaces, but what does that actually look like? You know, do the people who live in Vancouver have access to those spaces? Do they have the per se resources to go up on a mountain to go enjoy those resources? What does being a resident of Vancouver actually look like, and what needs are being overlooked as kind of like this mirage of creating this kind of perception of a green city? Singapore is kind of known to be the place to go visit if you're into urban studies, or if you're interested in studying sustainable buildings and green infrastructure. Singapore is home to the famous Changi International Airport, and within Changi there is this beautiful water feature which is called the Jewel, right at the heart of the airport. And we decided to compare this feature with Vancouver's International Airport. We got to see how Singapore reimagined the airport as more than just a place where travelers take flights. A lot of locals actually use the airport space when they aren't traveling. And that's because, of course, Singapore is very intentional with their land use. So not only is it an airport, it's also a social center. And now on the other side, for the Singaporean students, when they learned about Vancouver's International Airport and a lot of the indigenous features, for them it was really important to learn about Vancouver's showcasing to the world what their values are and what they want travelers to see when they're being welcomed to Vancouver. The sense of place that you feel immediately as you enter the airport. The Vancouver International Airport is designed around the theme of water, and so you'll notice by just the interior design and a lot of the water features that are available that water is a really key theme to the design, and that's because water is very important to the Coast Salish peoples who are the indigenous land keepers of this land. Yeah, it was really interesting to learn kind of the different value systems that were being imposed on the built infrastructure. We learned about Metro Vancouver's water infrastructure and how they manage their water systems. And I was really curious to learn more about the different issues and challenges that might affect Vancouver in the future in terms of water and water scarcity. And this wasn't a topic that I thought about here in Vancouver until we went to Singapore and learned about their challenges, and then kind of took that topic back to Vancouver and discussed and explored more about it here. So one thing that I learned, and have been appreciating more is the natural beauty that is around here. The mountains, the ocean, our landscape that we have here through their eyes and through their excitement of seeing Vancouver. At the end of the day, we live in a global world and we're all part of one global community, and I think that it's so super important in a time like today to share knowledge and to share what we've gleaned from our own experiences and to perhaps apply them to other places in the world.